Thick, ominous black clouds surged into the sky with an eerie intensity, swiftly spreading out until they nearly engulfed the heavens and earth. The spectacle was terrifying. At the mountain's summit, panic set in as shocked and uncertain gazes scanned the sky. Lin Dong frowned as he stared at the black, cloud-filled sky. From within the clouds, he could sense an overwhelming energy. His eyes flickered, and he swiftly leaped from the battle platform, landing on the mountain's summit below. As Lin Dong arrived at the summit, Little Mink, Little Yin, Su Ro, and the others quickly followed. Even Lu Bai and his group hurried over, their expressions tense, clearly disturbed by the bizarre sight. It seems like those guys have made their move. What's the plan? Little Mink muttered softly, gazing at the sky. Lin Dong nodded slightly, paused for a moment, and said, "Let's stay hidden for now. This level of conflict is beyond us. There are super sect experts keeping watch, and this region belongs to the super sects of the Eastern Mystery region. Seizing this territory won't be easy. If they make too much noise, it'll definitely alert the super sects of the Eastern Mystery region. At that point, no matter where these people come from, they won't get away with causing trouble here." "Brother Lin Dong, do you know these people?" Lu Bai and the others asked, their voices tinged with fear. Clearly, they hadn't expected anyone to challenge the super sects and try to snatch the ancient battleground. "Yeah, I stumbled upon them before and got chased afterward. We've crossed paths a few times," Lin Dong nodded, his tone light, as though it wasn't a big deal. But his words left Lu Bai, Yin Xian, and the others in awe. For someone to dare provoke the super sects of the Eastern Mystery region, they must have considerable backing. Yet Lin Dong had faced them head-on and was still alive, a feat that left them astounded. Boom! In the sky, the black clouds spread madly. A moment later, a crack appeared in the sea of black clouds, and from within it descended a dark light. 10 figures, shrouded in black radiance, slowly took shape in midair. As these figures appeared, the primordial energy in the heavens and earth stirred violently. An indescribable and terrifying pressure emanated from their bodies, paralyzing those on the mountain's summit with its sheer force. What terrifying power! Everyone at the summit paled in shock, their faces showing fear. The overwhelming pressure from these people's primordial energy alone was enough to suppress them. Where had these monsters come from? Humph! Above, the expressions of the 8 super sect experts also darkened. A cold snort reverberated, and an immense wave of primordial energy burst forth from them, countering the oppressive force. "I was wondering who it was. So it's you lot from the Western Mystery region again. You really have some nerve, sneaking into the Eastern Mystery region and even daring to make a move here." Lu Tong's eyes locked onto the black-clad figures, a sneer curling on his lips as he recognized their origins. "Haha, so it's Steward Lu Tong of the Yuan sect." From the group of black-clad figures, the leader let out a booming laugh. The black light on his head dissipated, revealing the face of a middle-aged man with a sly grin. "Zheng." Lu Tong's brow furrowed as he spoke coldly. "Why are you interfering with the 100 Dynasty War in the Eastern Mystery region? What are you up to?" "Oh, nothing much. The Western Mystery region has taken quite an interest in this ancient battleground. You've had it long enough. It's about time we had a turn." Zheng chuckled, his voice rumbling across the sky, carrying an unsettling, reverberating power. "Still harboring such ambitions, I see. This space has long been established as part of the Eastern Mystery region. With just the few of you, do you really think you can seize it? The moment I send out word, none of you will make it out of here alive." Lu Tong's voice turned icy. "We've already made our move. Do you really think we didn't account for that, Lu Tong? Or do you honestly believe you can send a message out of this space?" Zheng grinned sinisterly. Hearing this, Lu Tong's gaze grew cold. With a flick of his fingers, a streak of golden light shot out, attempting to disappear into the void. "Essence spirit transmission?" Zheng chuckled darkly, folding his arms as if he had no intention of stopping it. The golden light shot from Lu Tong's hand, but just as it was about to disappear into the void, a vast black rune appeared out of nowhere, flashing darkly as it deflected the golden light back. Seeing this, The expressions of Lin Dong and the other super sect experts shifted. A powerful figure from the ancient wilderness hall immediately threw a punch, a terrifying force rippling from his fist, distorting the space around him. But as the space warped, strange black patterns emerged, like a web, sticking to the void and easily neutralizing the blow. Haha, we brought the heaven-sealing formation diagram this time. Don't worry, nothing you do here will alert your sections. And the old monsters of the Eastern Mystery Region will be preoccupied by our Western Mystery Region, Zhang Zhong said with a sly smile. The heaven-sealing formation diagram? Lin Dong and even the elder from the Dao sect were visibly shaken upon hearing this name. You even brought out such a pure primordial treasure. The Western Mystery Region really went all out this time, the Dao sect elder remarked with a frown. Well, what can we do? This ancient battleground is a treasure trove. It's not easy to walk away from that. Zhang Zhong chuckled. Once we've set up our formation in this space, the powerhouses of the Western Mystery Region will be able to transfer the entire battleground over to our region. And these people here, are they the talents you super sects carefully selected? Haha, perfect. We'll take them with us. If they join us, we'll give them decent treatment. If not, well, they'll become pill slaves. Zhang Zhong's gaze swept over the people at the summit, and his words sent waves of horror through the crowd. They are from the Western Mystery Region, Liu Bai growled through clenched teeth, his face darkening. His dynasty was rooted in the Eastern Mystery Region. If they were captured and taken to the Western Mystery Region, they would lose all dignity. Around Liu Bai, the faces of the other dynasty talents were grim, their eyes filled with fear. They knew all too well the fate that awaited them if they were taken to the Western Mystery Region. Life as a slave would be inevitable. Above, the Dao sect elder's brows furrowed slightly, though he didn't appear overly flustered. He glanced at Zhang Zhong and his group, then half-closed his eyes. You seem quite well prepared, but are you so confident you can establish a formation right under our noses? We 8 aren't so easily ignored. Although these Western Mystery Region intruders seemed formidable, it was clear that the truly powerful ones hadn't arrived yet. They likely didn't dare send too many of their top-tier experts, lest they lose the element of surprise. Haha, who would dare ignore the Dao sect's Wu Dao elder? Zhang Zhong laughed, his gaze lingering briefly on the Dao sect elder, though a hint of apprehension flickered in the depths of his eyes. This unease was something he hadn't shown even when facing Lin Dong of the Yuan sect. Clearly, Zhang Zhong harbored a genuine respect for the Dao sect elder and did not dare to underestimate him. Fighting you all would indeed be troublesome, so we never intended to. We only need to trap you temporarily. Zhang Zhong shrugged, his grin particularly sinister, like a sly black fox, making him all the more detestable. Trap us? I'm afraid you lack the ability. Lin Dong sneered. If that's what you believe, you're sorely mistaken. Zhang Zhong's face twisted into a strange expression, and with a sudden sweep of his hands, his fingers began to form intricate seals at lightning speed. Heaven-sealing formation diagram, space lockdown. As Zhang Zhong shouted, the dozen or so experts from the Western Mystery Region behind him let out sinister laughs and swiftly formed their own hand seals. Boom. As they completed their seals, the sky trembled violently, the void splitting open as eerie black beams of light shot out, coalescing into a massive ancient rune. The rune expanded, forming a prison-like structure that instantly trapped the 8 members of the Dao sect within. Boom, boom, boom. As soon as the barrier formed, intense energy ripples erupted from within, as powerful attacks rained down on the ancient rune, shaking it violently. Hemph, though I can't kill you, using the heaven-sealing formation diagram to trap you is no problem. Zhang Zhong chuckled coldly and waved his hand. Activate the formation. Increase the lock. Yes. At his command, the dozen Western Mystery Region experts responded in unison, fully powering the formation to trap the Dao sect elder and the others more securely. Cao Yu, Chang Wei, prepare the formation. We'll need to contain these people, so we can't afford any distractions. The formation is up to you. Zhang Zhong raised his head and barked into the black clouds. If anyone dares to interfere, kill them without mercy. As he spoke, Zhang Zhong's icy gaze swept over Lin Dong and the others standing at the summit.
Yes.
As his words fell, several dozen figures, each radiating a powerful aura of primordial energy, shot out from the black clouds. Lin Dong's eyes focused on the figures, his pupils contracting when they locked onto a familiar one at the forefront, the undead general they had fought recently. At this moment, the faces of all the competitors at the mountain summit turned grim. The situation had taken a bad turn. High above, the figures from the black clouds halted a short distance from the 100 Dynasties mountain, their eyes gleaming with amusement as they stared down at the people below. So these are the so-called geniuses of the various dynasties in the Eastern Mystery region? They don't seem all that impressive. A slightly effeminate youth at the forefront of the shadowy figures glanced at the summit and smirked. Haha, once we move this space to the Western Mystery region, these so-called geniuses will probably end up as nothing more than prisoners. A man behind the effeminate youth laughed loudly. Haha. The sky echoed with laughter, as if the group had no regard for the so-called dynasty geniuses below. Hearing the mocking laughter from above, anger flickered in the eyes of those at the summit. Everyone here was prideful, and being openly ridiculed was something they found hard to bear. However, though their hearts burned with anger, no one dared to speak up. Looking at the current situation, even the experts from the super sects seemed to be trapped. Were they supposed to be the ones to turn the tide? Some exchanged glances, and soon, their gazes shifted. Most of them turned their eyes toward Qin Tian, who stood at the center. No matter what, the Tianyuan dynasty was the strongest in the Eastern Mystery region, and with the Yuan sect backing them, it was only natural for people to place some hope on him. Under the weight of these numerous gazes, a faint smile tugged at the corner of Qin Tian's mouth, and his posture straightened unconsciously. His eyes flickered briefly toward Lin Dong, a hint of pride gleaming in them as he reveled in the feeling of being the center of attention. Qin Tian's subtle actions didn't escape Lin Dong's notice, and he couldn't help but chuckle inwardly. Even in a time like this, Qin Tian still had the energy to indulge in such vain thoughts. But these people they were facing were far from easy opponents. Gentlemen, don't you think it's a bit inappropriate to act so wildly in the Eastern Mystery region? Qin Tian finally spoke, his voice booming as he straightened his back and addressed the powerful figures in the sky. And who are you supposed to be? The effeminate man in the sky looked down at Qin Tian with a smirk, his tone dismissive. I am Qin Tian of the Tianyuan dynasty, a disciple of the Yuan sect. Qin Tian's eyes flared with anger as he responded coldly. Qin Tian? Never heard of you. There's no one by that name among the younger generation of the Yuan sect, the effeminate man said mockingly. Haha, brother Chang Wei. This guy clearly hasn't even set foot in the Yuan sect yet. Of course, you wouldn't have heard of him. A man behind the effeminate youth laughed. So he's just riding on someone else's coattails. The effeminate man, Chang Wei, smiled faintly, ignoring the fact that Qin Tian's face had already turned a dark shade of blue with anger. That's enough, Chang Wei. No need to waste words, said the man at the front, dressed in dark red robes. With a wave of his hand, he silenced the taunts from behind. Yes, brother Cao. The man clearly held considerable authority, as even Chang Wei smiled and nodded, ceasing his mockery. Once the others were quiet, the man in dark red robes slowly lowered his gaze, looking down at the crowd with an indifferent expression. From his body emanated a faint, yet terrifying, ripple of primordial energy that sent a shiver through everyone's hearts. His energy, it was even stronger than Qin Tian's. Who is Lin Dong? The man in the dark red robes asked, his gaze sweeping over the crowd, pausing only briefly on Qin Tian before he spoke. Upon hearing this, everyone froze for a moment, then their gazes simultaneously shifted to the tall figure in the back. It was clear they hadn't expected the man in red robes to call Lin Dong by name. Lin Dong's brows furrowed slightly as he lifted his head, locking eyes with the man. His tone was calm. What do you want? You recognize him, don't you? The man in the dark red robes waved his hand, and a figure stepped forward from behind him, staring at Lin Dong with venomous eyes. It was the undead general, the very one Lin Dong had previously wounded and forced to flee. Heh, Lin Dong, do you remember what I said to you? I told you that you'd regret it. The undead general sneered, his voice cold and filled with malice. So you survived. How annoying! Lin Dong glanced at him and responded with a faint smile. You can keep running your mouth, but when this space is transported to the Western Mystery region, I have plenty of ways to show you what it means to wish for death. The undead general's face twisted with rage. Oh, Lin Dong, you know these people? Qin Tian interjected, clearly not wanting Lin Dong to steal the spotlight. I ran into them a while back. We fought, Lin Dong replied casually. You knew they had designs on this space? Why didn't you report it earlier? Qin Tian asked, his tone laced with accusation. Lin Dong narrowed his eyes slightly, a trace of irritation flickering within, though his voice remained steady. If some random people showed up on the road and told you they planned to steal this space from the super sects of the Eastern Mystery region, would you believe them? Qin Tian froze, unable to respond. Qin Tian, this isn't the time for that. We need to stop them from completing their formation. If they manage to transport this space to the Western Mystery region, we'll be trapped in a wolf's den, Lan Ying suddenly interjected. Hearing Lan Ying's words, Qin Tian turned his attention back to the man in dark red robes. Don't worry too much. After all, we have the numbers. That kind of seal won't hold Lord Lu Tong and the others for long. I'll take care of this man. With that, Qin Tian stepped forward, and a powerful wave of primordial energy surged from his body. The strength of his aura caused quite a stir among those watching. The 6th Nirvana stage? As expected from the Tianyuan dynasty, he's already broken through to the 6th stage. The experts from the various dynasties atop the mountain were astonished, though some were also relieved. The stronger Qin Tian was, the better their chances of survival. So, he's reached the 6th Nirvana stage. Lin Dong's eyebrows raised slightly. Qin Tian certainly had some skill. If nothing unexpected happened, he might very well claim victory in the 100 Dynasty War. Since Qin Tian seemed eager to play the role of the hero, Lin Dong was more than happy to let him. He stepped back to stand alongside Little Mink and the others. That guy doesn't stand a chance. In fact, he might lose miserably, Little Mink said lazily. Oh. Lin Dong blinked and glanced at the man in the dark red robes again. The man's strength did seem to surpass Qin Tian's, but could it really be a complete defeat? Little Mink smirked playfully but didn't elaborate, simply crossing his arms and watching the scene unfold. 6th Nirvana stage? That's not bad at all. The man in dark red robes seemed mildly surprised as he gazed at Qin Tian. He shook his head slightly and murmured, Your numbers may be large, but you're nothing more than a disorderly mob. While we aren't at full strength due to certain constraints, it should still be more than enough to deal with you. Begin the formation. With that, he waved his hand, giving a soft command. Yes. At his order, the dozens of figures behind him responded in unison. Each one threw a black orb into the air, which hovered momentarily before shooting out beams of black light. These beams pierced through the void, as if penetrating the very fabric of the space itself. Qin Tian, stop them. Whoever can destroy the formation will be this year's 100 Dynasty War champion. As the black beams tore through the void, Lu Tong's angry voice suddenly rang out from within the prison formed by the black runes. Himph, you think you can run wild in our Eastern Mystery region? You've picked the wrong target. Qin Tian's eyes flashed with cold light as he unleashed a vast surge of primordial energy. In an instant, his body transformed into a streak of light, charging toward the man in the dark red robes with lightning speed. Attack! Behind him, the other experts who had entered the Nirvana Gold ranking also steeled their expressions, preparing to follow Qin Tian's lead. Fools! The man in dark red robes watched Qin Tian's approach with a cold gaze. He slowly extended his hand, clenching it lightly. Boom! As his hand moved, the space in front of him warped, and a strange black beam shot out from the void like a bolt of lightning, slamming into Qin Tian's body. The black light struck Qin Tian, causing the golden light around his body to flicker wildly. But in the next instant, the golden light dimmed, and Qin Tian spat out a mouthful of blood as his body was sent hurtling through the air, crashing hard onto the ground. The Nirvana Gold ranking experts, who had been about to rush forward, froze in their tracks, their faces filled with shock. None of them had expected that even Qin Tian, at the 6th Nirvana stage, would be defeated in just one move. Lin Dong's expression grew serious as he watched the scene unfold. This man was incredibly powerful. The man in dark red robes hovered in midair, looking down at the crowd below with a mocking smile. Anyone else want to try? He stood tall in the air, one hand behind his back, his gaze sweeping across the summit with a disdainful smirk on his face. The mountain summit fell into an uneasy silence. The crowd's expressions were dark, and some clenched their fists in frustration. Though anger boiled within them, the sight of the defeated Qin Tian was like a cold splash of water, dousing any desire to act. If even Qin Tian, at the 6th Nirvana stage, had been so easily defeated, what hope did they have? Lan Ying and the other Nirvana gold ranking experts also hesitated, clearly shaken by the man's overwhelming strength. How is he this strong? Lin Dong muttered, frowning as he watched. It's because of the heaven-sealing formation diagram, Little Mink said calmly. That's a pure primordial treasure. This man can tap into a fraction of the diagram's power. While that fraction is far from the diagram's full strength, combined with his own abilities, it's no wonder Qin Tian was defeated in a single strike. Pure primordial treasure? Lin Dong furrowed his brows. It's a treasure far more powerful than a heaven-tier spiritual treasure. Such items are incredibly rare, even among the super sects, Little Mink explained. Pure primordial treasures are immensely powerful, and their capabilities far exceed anything you can imagine. This heaven-sealing formation diagram must be a top-tier pure primordial treasure, otherwise, it wouldn't be able to lock down an entire space like this. Incredible, Lin Dong muttered under his breath. The ability to seal off an entire space with just a single treasure. What kind of power was that? Compared to this pure primordial treasure, his black dragon heaven-soaring seal seemed like nothing more than a trivial toy. Is the mysterious stone talisman also a pure primordial treasure? Lin Dong asked after a brief pause, his curiosity piqued. TCH, even back in my prime, I couldn't figure out what that thing really is. Its mysteries are far beyond any pure primordial treasure, Little Mink said, shaking his head dismissively, clearly unimpressed. So even you don't know what the stone talisman is capable of, Lin Dong rolled his eyes at Little Mink. Hearing this, Little Mink froze, clearly feeling his pride had been hurt. He opened his mouth to retort but quickly realized he truly didn't know the full extent of the stone talisman's power. Reluctantly, he rubbed his nose in frustration. This situation isn't looking great. Little Mink quickly shifted the topic, gazing up at the sky. Lin Dong sighed lightly and nodded in agreement. He hadn't expected the 100 Dynasty War to take such a disastrous turn. His father and grandfather were waiting anxiously for good news back home. If they found out he'd been captured and taken to the Western Mystery region, it would crush them. Let's just see how things play out for now. In the sky, the man named Cao Yu looked down at the silent crowd at the mountain summit and smiled faintly. With a wave of his hand, the black rings held by his followers burst into even brighter beams of light. These beams pierced the space, gradually forming a massive black formation in the sky. We can't let them complete the formation. As they watched the formation take shape, Lan Ying, Qingfeng, and the others grew increasingly grim. They knew that if the formation was completed and the space was transported to the Western Mystery region, their fates would be sealed. The relationship between the Western and Eastern Mystery regions was notoriously hostile. Let's move. I have no interest in ending up in the Western Mystery region, said a man from the Sword Dynasty, his face dark as he hefted a heavy black sword onto his back. What about Cao Yu's strength? Can anyone here take him on? Lan Ying clenched her jade-like hands tightly. If they didn't stop Cao Yu, they wouldn't be able to disrupt the formation, but if all the Nirvana gold ranking experts focused on him, the others wouldn't have enough manpower to interfere with the formation. Hearing her question, the expressions of the top talents from the various super dynasties darkened. If Qin Tian, at the 6th Nirvana stage, was defeated in one move, who among them could face Cao Yu in a one-on-one fight? I'll do it. You all focus on the formation. The man with the heavy sword gritted his teeth and stepped forward. With a wave of his hand, the sword on his back shot into the air, releasing a sharp, violent aura. Chan Nan, Yu, Lan Ning and the others were startled, but before they could finish their words, the man had already transformed into a streak of sword light, slicing through the air as he shot toward Cao Yu at lightning speed. Foolish. Cao Yu's expression remained indifferent as he watched Chun Nan, his voice dripping with disdain. He calmly extended his hand. Boom. As his hand moved, the space before him twisted, and a torrent of black light surged forth, forming a massive hand that swatted down on the sword light. Bang! The sharp sword light crumbled instantly under the pressure of the black hand, and Chen Nan was sent flying backward, coughing up blood as he crashed to the ground in defeat. Even this powerful expert from the Sword Dynasty had been defeated by Cao Yu in just one move. Chun Nan, Lan Ning and the others rushed to his side, their eyes blazing with fury as they looked at his injured form. Damn it, he's incredibly strong, Chun Nan rasped, blood still dribbling from his lips. To hell with it, let's fight them to the death. One of the experts roared in anger, the faces of the others also burning with fury. Being pushed around by these Western Mystery Region invaders was unbearable. Better to die fighting here than to be taken to the Western Mystery Region as slaves. Another expert gritted his teeth, his face dark. Right, let's fight. The surrounding crowd echoed these sentiments, their voices rising in defiance. Lan Ning bit her lip, her face cold as ice. Rising to her feet, she said, Qing Feng, Ma Lin, Mu Se. Let's attack together and stall Cao Yu. The rest of you, focus on destroying the formation. Understood. The Nirvana Gold ranking experts standing beside Lan Ning nodded firmly, their eyes filled with murderous intent. Go. Lan Ning was decisive, knowing they couldn't afford to waste any more time. But just as she prepared to charge, a hand suddenly reached out from behind, pressing gently on her shoulder. You're not strong enough to fight him. Don't go. Lan Ning turned, only to see Lin Dong standing there with a helpless expression on his face. She bit her lip and scoffed. I thought you were going to hide in the back this whole time. Clearly, she was annoyed that Lin Dong had only now decided to step forward. I'm not from some powerful super dynasty. Why would you expect anything from me? Lin Dong chuckled, completely unfazed by her jab. He lifted his gaze toward Cao Yu, stared in silence for a moment, then sighed. Fine, I'll handle him. You? Lan Ning and the others were stunned. While Lin Dong's previous fight with Lin Langtian had been impressive enough to shock them, Cao Yu had just effortlessly defeated Qin Tian. Could Lin Dong really stand a chance? What? You didn't like me hiding in the back, but now you won't let me fight? Lin Dong smiled wryly as he saw Lan Ying's doubtful expression. Hearing this, Lan Ying's face flushed slightly, and her sharp tongue faltered. She muttered, He's really strong. There's no helping it. I don't want to end up in the Western Mystery Region either. Lin Dong shrugged casually, then added with a smile. Besides, whether he's strong or not, we won't know until we try, right? As Lin Dong finished speaking, he didn't waste any more words and began to walk forward. However, he had barely taken 2 steps before Little Mink appeared in front of him like a ghost. I'll handle this, Little Mink said, staring at Lin Dong. He knew Lin Dong well. While his strength was considerable, defeating someone like Cao Yu would be difficult. There's Yuan's sect here. I doubt those guys are the forgiving type. You can't expose your identity, Lin Dong shook his head slightly, speaking in a low voice that only Little Mink could hear. You're not strong enough to beat him, Little Mink frowned. Hearing this, Lin Dong smiled faintly. He patted Little Mink on the shoulder and said softly, That's not necessarily true. You've been wondering why I've been suppressing my spiritual energy, haven't you? Well, I'll show you now. As Lin Dong brushed past him, Little Mink's eyes narrowed. Could he really pull this off? On the mountaintop, all eyes were fixed on the young figure walking forward. Their gazes were curious. Lin Dong's past battles had already proven his exceptional strength. Though he appeared to be only at the 4th Nirvana stage, everyone knew his true combat ability far exceeded that level. In fact, some believed that Lin Dong had the potential to rival Qin Tian. However, given the current situation, even Qin Tian had suffered a crushing defeat. Could Lin Dong really turn the tide? Lin Dong. In the sky, Cao Yu looked down at Lin Dong with a faint smile, saying, I saw your previous battles. You're quite good, but you're not a match for me. Trying to show off could get you killed. Lin Dong smiled back and replied, How would we know if we don't try? You might not live to regret trying, Cao Yu chuckled. Brother Cao, why waste time with this kid? He's just a fourth Nirvana stage cultivator. Let me take care of him. The effeminate man beside Cao Yu sneered, glancing at Lin Dong with contempt. I'll handle him. Cao Yu waved his hand, his eyes fixed on Lin Dong. This one isn't as simple as he seems. Underestimating him could cost you. Oh. The man named Chang Wei raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. In the Western Mystery region, he wasn't considered top tier, but he had been cultivating in a super sect for 2 years, while Lin Dong and the others hadn't even entered one yet. Set up the formation and keep an eye on the others, Cao Yu said casually before stepping forward. He extended a hand toward Lin Dong, curling his fingers in a gesture of invitation, smiling as he added, Go ahead. Let's see how long you can last against me. Leave disrupting the formation to you all, Lin Dong said, turning his head toward Lan Ying and the others. Be careful, Lan Ying said, her voice full of concern. If Lin Dong was defeated as easily as Qin Tian, it would deal a severe blow to their morale. Lin Dong nodded with a smile, then took a deep breath. A sharp glint flickered in his eyes as he mirrored Cao Yu's gesture, curling his fingers. Come on then, let me experience the strength of a Western Mystery Region expert. Cao Yu's eyes narrowed, a cold gleam flashing through them. What an arrogant fool. With a sneer, Cao Yu wasted no time. His hand reached out, pointing forward. Boom. The seemingly casual motion sent the surrounding primordial energy into a frenzy. The space in front of Cao Yu twisted violently, and a massive black beam of light shot forth, tearing through the air with an unstoppable force, speeding toward Lin Dong. Seeing such a brutal opening attack, Lan Ying and the others were shocked. It was clear that Cao Yu had no intention of letting Lin Dong last more than a single round. The speed of the attack was such that it was impossible to dodge. As expected, Lin Dong made no move to avoid the black beam of light ripping through space toward him. Swoosh. In an instant, the black beam, imbued with immense destructive power, reached Lin Dong. Seeing this, the hearts of Lan Ying and the others sank. Boom. A muffled sound rang out, and Lan Ying and the others' faces darkened. Was it over already? Foolish. Chang Wei and the others laughed aloud, their voices dripping with mockery. He's not dead. Cao Yu's brows furrowed slightly, his voice tinged with surprise. What? Chang Wei and the others froze, disbelief flooding their faces. They knew how terrifyingly powerful Cao Yu was, especially when channeling the power of the heaven-sealing formation diagram. How could Lin Dong possibly survive such an attack? Ignoring them, Cao Yu kept his gaze fixed on the spot where the black light was gradually dissipating. As the light faded, a large, imposing figure slowly emerged. What? That's not right. Both Chang Wei and Lan Ying stared in surprise at the massive figure that appeared. When the black light fully cleared, the imposing figure was revealed to everyone. The figure's entire body was a deep crimson, as if forged from red copper. Its face was unfamiliar and glowing with a strange red light. It wasn't Lin Dong. This is a blood spirit puppet? Cao Yu's pupils shrank slightly as he stared at the crimson figure exuding a faint, ominous aura. Slowly, he spoke, realizing that Lin Dong not only possessed a puppet, but that it was a blood spirit puppet, one of the most powerful types. More importantly, this puppet's level was high, possibly reaching the 5th level or even higher. Step. A figure emerged slowly from behind the large puppet, and Lin Dong, with a slight smile on his face, looked up at Cao Yu. Good eye. The blood spirit puppet, of course, was Lin Dong's, which had been significantly enhanced since he acquired the bones of the heavenly desolate divine bull at the auction in Myriad Elephant City. With Little Mink's help and the vast amount of nirvana pills at his disposal, Lin Dong had been steadily strengthening the puppet. Now, it was far stronger than ever before. Based on Lin Dong's estimates, The blood spirit puppet had likely reached the 5th level. Moreover, thanks to the integration of the heavenly desolate divine bull's bones, its defensive capabilities had become terrifying. Earlier, Cao Yu's fierce attack, which could have seriously injured a 5th Nirvana stage expert, had only left a shallow mark on the puppet's body. Lin Dong. Behind him, Lan Ying and the others were overjoyed to see Lin Dong unharmed, clearly surprised that he had managed to use the puppet to withstand Cao Yu's attack. Impressive blood spirit puppet, but I wonder how many of my attacks it can withstand, Cao Yu said with a faint smile. You'll just have to find out, Lin Dong replied, his eyes flashing with sharp determination. He stamped his foot against the ground, and in an instant, his figure shot forward. While in midair, his hand grasped the sky crocodile bone spear, which materialized in a flash. The spear trembled as it unleashed a storm of sharp spear beams, enveloping Cao Yu. As the spear beams condensed, faint streaks of green light quietly flowed through them. Swoosh. Seeing Lin Dong take the initiative, Cao Yu's eyes turned cold. He thrust out his palm, and the sky filled with black light. The space itself seemed to ripple as a giant black hand formed, bearing down on Lin Dong with overwhelming force. Boom. Just as the giant black hand was about to strike Lin Dong, a crimson light streaked across the sky. The blood spirit puppet punched forward, colliding head-on with the black hand. Swoosh. Swoosh. While the intense clash occurred overhead, Lin Dong remained focused. Without sparing the battle above a glance, he swiftly closed the distance to Cao Yu. The deadly spear beams aimed directly at his vital points. Humph! Cao Yu snorted coldly, seeing through Lin Dong's tactics. He knew Lin Dong was using the blood spirit puppet to block his attack while launching an offensive of his own. Instantly, brilliant golden light surged around him, forming a radiant golden shield in front of him. Clang! 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 The sharp spear beams struck the golden shield with ferocity, but all they managed to produce were some sparks. It was clear they couldn't penetrate the shield's formidable defense. Is that all? Cao Yu sneered, but as his smirk appeared, his eyes suddenly narrowed. He noticed that after the spear beams shattered, they didn't disappear. Instead, streaks of green light shot out from within them, green scales. The scales flickered, emitting a dangerously sharp energy. Swoosh! 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 The green scales rained down like a violent storm, striking the golden shield with incredible speed. This time, there were no sparks. The scales pierced through the previously impenetrable shield and continued their deadly path toward Cao Yu's vital points. So, this is the real attack? Cao Yu was momentarily shocked. It turned out that Lin Dong's initial spear strike had been a decoy, hiding the true attack within the green scales. Clever, but still useless. Cao Yu's expression turned cold, and his body trembled slightly. The space around him warped as black light seeped through the distortions, forming a protective barrier. Swoosh! Swoosh! The razor-sharp green scales struck the barrier, but it was as if they had fallen into a bottomless pit. They made no impact, disappearing without a trace. Lin Dong, this space is already enveloped by the heaven-sealing formation diagram. I can tap into its power. It's not just you. Even if all of you attack together, you won't be able to defeat me. Cao Yu stood within the black barrier, his voice filled with arrogance as he laughed coldly. Swoosh! Lin Dong, however, paid no attention to Cao Yu's mocking words. With a light tap of his foot, his body shot into the sky. To the shock of everyone watching, he crossed his legs midair and sat down. At the same time, waves of immense spiritual energy surged from his Niwen palace. The spiritual energy erupted like a storm, growing at an alarming rate. It was as if a volcano that had been suppressed for countless years had finally erupted, releasing its full force without restraint. Boom, boom, boom. As Lin Dong's spiritual energy exploded, dark clouds began to gather in the sky, and violent winds whipped through the air. Everyone watching was stunned into silence. A moment later, gasps filled the air. Was this the wind and thunder tribulation? What in the world was Lin Dong planning to do?